I hope you're ready for it. It is reunion recap. I've got both of the Brav Bros, Steal and Shooter, back fresh off of our live show in Philly, which sold out, and just ahead of our upcoming live show in New York City on July 26th at City Winery NYC. I hope you are ready. We have a lot of Jersey to break down, and I've got a lot of feelings, and I'm sure they do too. So let's dive in, shall we? Oh, hi, it's me, Zack Peter, pop culture junkie, reality TV insider, published author, and host of the No Filter with Zack Peter podcast. Here I'll bring you all the latest news on the Real Housewives, deep dives into celebrity legal scandals, and unfiltered convos with your favorite stars. I've got you covered. And yes, I always keep receipts. So be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for all the latest tea. Now, let's dive in. In we shall. Please welcome from the Brav Bros podcast, Steal and Shooter.
What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Hi, guys. Are you still revved up from Philly, from our live show?
Yeah, I haven't come down from it since. That's why I needed to plan the next live show as soon as humanly possible, because I'm going to be chasing that dragon for the rest of my life.
Well, a little bit of tea that I guess we can spill now is that we were supposed to have some of the Jersey Housewives in our Philly show. And then at the last minute, Bravo kind of cock blocked us because they were still in production for the reunion. And now I guess there's a bit of good news, since we now know that Real Houses of New Jersey is going to be put on pause. So after the reunion airs, it looks like our next live show in New York City is going to fall right in between the pause. So they should be open and available. So you never know who we may end up live with in New York.
Hint,
Might have
hint.
to squeeze one in.
Well, we fit in Dorinda and Chris Bassett, which was great. And now July 26th, we're going to be at City Winery in New York City. Get your tickets at nofilterlive.com, guys. Get your tickets at nofilterlive.com. July 26th. Mark your iCal now. We're coming to NYC.
Yeah, mark it. Buy a damn ticket. Don't wait.
Yes, get your tickets. Don't wait. Because, I mean, we kept Dorinda in the bag for a long time until the week of the show. And at that point, all the good seats were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, if you're listening to this right now, we promise you there will be really good guests. It's going to be a really good show. Get good seats, get good tickets now, because if you don't, I'm telling you, you're going to miss out. The first show was sold out, and it was an absolute blast. Ask anybody. They're all talking about it.
Just buy a whole table for yourself and your friends. You won't be disappointed.
There you go. Okay, how are you guys feeling about this week's Jersey finale? Are you exhausted? Are you excited?
I was waiting for Shooter to chime in. I am. Look, I feel like overall,
your face says that you're over this season.
No, my face looks like this because I was expecting to get pavers for a goddamn patio that I'm building, and the guy stiffed me, and now the sand's sitting. It's a whole different story. My face, that's why I look like that. But overall, I like this season of Jersey for the most part. I didn't hate it. I thought there were some good things. I like the newbies. As far as last night's episode, we kind of saw it happening all season long. We were waiting for everything to sort of come to a head, and it didn't really. There was no confrontation to the point where people were like at blows for an extended period of time. There was it was somewhat eased into, and so I'm glad that we finally got a moment where everyone kind of just had it out. However, nothing was accomplished. Everyone was just screaming as loud as they possibly could. Marge comes out somehow still not looking like the bad guy, which makes no fucking sense, but whatever. We'll get into that. It was lacking as a finale for me, but I did see the buildup coming.
Yeah, I mean, did you expect anything to get accomplished? I just don't understand. Like, we've been watching the show for how long, and nothing ever gets accomplished. Nothing ever happens. Yeah, I guess we got a confrontation where we got to see Louie blow up, and you get to see the real Louie. You get to see kind of, I don't know. It was just all bullshit. And I guess what we can kind of focus on is maybe the newbies relationship. It looks like maybe Rachel and Danielle might have a path forward, which, Steele and I have talked about at length. We kind of want that to happen, just kind of team up a little bit. But overall, I mean, yeah, I think it was a little lackluster. I feel like we got a little bit of, if you want to say fireworks, we got fireworks, but nothing ever happens. And I don't know why we always expect things to change.
Well, I think because things have happened in Jersey before. We've had big confrontations, we've had major blowouts, we've had table flips. And the way that this finale was pumped up, it was a good finale. But I agree with you guys in the sense that I was expecting there to be a fireworks show. And it feels like a lot of things started to spark up and started to happen, but there was no real big shebang. And I think it's because Teresa and Louie ended up exiting probably because they know that they're guilty in all of this. And to your point, Steele, I don't think that Margaret is to blame for all of this. I think Teresa was very much behind. Teresa and Louie wanted to make Joe and Melissa look bad, and you can feel the tension boiling up as the season was coming to an end. And I think they wanted Joe to leave Melissa. I think Teresa and Louie tried to give Joe Gorga the bait, and he didn't take the bait when they initially called him over to give him this news. And so because that didn't happen, then she ends up using Jennifer and Danielle as her little minions to kind of do her dirty work, which is what Teresa has done historically since the beginning. Like Teresa has always done this, and she's always had other people do her dirty work for her and then be like, I didn't know that you were a stripper.
You didn't think that Danielle did that genuinely? You thought that was Teresa in her ear?
No. I think Danielle believes that she was doing that genuinely. She just doesn't realize how it was influenced by Teresa and Jennifer. Because even Jennifer was in the finale. She's like, I didn't want it to come out. And I'm like, bullshit. You said it on camera in Ireland. Like, you said it on camera. So when you say something on camera, it's going to come out regardless. And the fact that you said it to Danielle on camera, that right there says that you're expecting Danielle to fully execute that. And if she didn't, then I'm pretty sure Jennifer would have been like, listen, this has already been said on camera. I'm just giving you the information because it's already out there. They wanted this to come out.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I do think that there are like phantom puppet strings when it comes to Danielle, where she does think that she's doing the right thing, but she doesn't realize that she's really just a cog in this system that's already been developed over years and years. And Teresa's better at playing the game. I mean, she threw that in there. Everybody knew immediately that it was Teresa's fault. I do want to focus on, two things. We got a little bit of a callback from Jen when it was Teresa and Jen and Danielle sitting out on the deck talking about the chosen family. Don't worry about your family. Your chosen family's here. So that's confirmation, I think, from Teresa's engagement party, talking about her chosen family, where we kind of overanalyze that. That was definitely a strike. We can kind of book that now. But the other thing that is really bugging me is that Teresa just talks about family and family and family. You can clearly see that she doesn't view Joe's wife as part of her family, or else she would have called Melissa over to talk about this. Instead, they go behind Melissa's back to talk to Joe. Like, what did they expect was going to really happen? It's just there's just so much manipulation. And then when it comes down to it and you get called out on it and you just say, well, no, I wanted to talk to Joe, like blame it on Louie. And then Louie takes the fall, if you will. Like, there's no way that Louie went through channels to get this information. This came from Laura, which went to Teresa and Jen, that then got to Louie, and Louie said, I'll take the fall for you, babe, and then moved on. It's all bullshit.
It is all bullshit. And I feel a lot of people are like, well, what should have Teresa have done that would have actually gone over well and not made her look bad? She should have shut it down from the beginning, the way that she expects any rumor about her to get shut down. She should have gone to Louie or she should have gone to Joe and Melissa and been like, look, this is the rumor that's out there. I just want to give you a heads up that it's out there. I don't believe it. I told this Laura woman to fuck off, and it's not true and it's not real. And then when it came to Jennifer and Danielle, she should have in that moment been like, don't give this life. This Laura woman doesn't sound credible. Margaret and I are good now, because at this point she claims to have made up with Margaret and invited Margaret to her wedding. She should have said, Margaret and I are good. I don't know what this disgruntled old friend wants to say about Margaret or Melissa or whoever, but I don't think that we should give this any life. Don't talk about it on the show. And that's not what she did. She waited and sat on it for 6 months. They tried to bring it up at last season's reunion. They couldn't do it. So then they end up bringing it up during filming this season with Danielle, who's very impressionable. And when it comes to this comment that Sarah made, that Jennifer is a fan and does whatever Teresa says to do, I don't think it's that Jennifer will do what Teresa says. I think Jennifer will do anything that'll make Teresa happy.
I agree with that, but and maybe it's because I'm a Danielle sympathizer. Like, I want her to do well so bad. So, like, in my mind, when this started happening, I'm like, you know what? Maybe Danielle's playing the game. Maybe she took a little lead from Fuda. She saw Fuda was dealing with things, and like, all right, if I'm going to be successful in this group, I need to kind of draw my line in the sand, or at least take a stance here, because between that and then actually watching her stand up to Marge and get in Marge's face for the first time, instead of being like, and run to the bathroom crying, I thought it was a step forward for Danielle in this episode. And was she being a mouthpiece for Teresa? Was that Teresa's plan all along, telling Jen to tell her, so on and so forth? Yeah, probably. Especially considering, like you said, Zach, there is no way that Jen was trying to protect the family and not let this get out when she is the one that said it on TV. So yeah, there's definitely some chess pieces being moved. However, I appreciated that Danielle, one, stood her ground, two, brought it up to Melissa and got in the game, whether it's on Teresa's behalf or not. She's in the game now. She's like, all right, I'm playing. You want to play? Let's fucking play. And I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Danielle's heart was in the right place. I think she genuinely thought she was doing Melissa a solid. And she didn't realize that she was doing Teresa and Jennifer's dirty work. Teresa wanted to make Melissa look bad, and Jennifer wanted to make Margaret look bad because Margaret made Jennifer look bad last season, bringing up the bill affair rumor, which resurfaced in the finale, where Jennifer seems to like think that it was the mistress's fault for why her husband cheated on her, because she's like, she threw herself at him, which is also sick and twisted, and why she's in this loveless relationship where Bill cannot be bothered by Jennifer, and if he cheats on her again, she'll continue to stay.
But my issue again lies with how Marge speaks to people. Like, I don't know how she can get on this high horse with everybody and act like, you don't say that, you're disgusting, you're a disgusting person, blah, blah, blah. And the shit she says is like, what did she say about the assist? Oh, he had sex with his subordinate. Like, gets very specific about it. It's like, that's fucked up. And then she says, as Danielle's walking away, that's why your brother doesn't talk to you. It's like, you don't have to pick the meanest thing in the world.
The thing with Marge is when you come at her and you don't back down, she does say crazy things. She does go a little too far. The problem is that there's never any repercussions for it. So usually we'll see people getting into fights and then they say unforgivable things and then they have to deal with it for the next 3 or 4 episodes. Everybody just writes Marge off and they're just like, well, Marge said that. Like, nobody even confronts her and says, maybe Marge, you shouldn't have said that. Maybe you shouldn't have talked that way. Everybody's just like, oh yeah, Marge is just going to be Marge. And she never loses any friends because of it anymore. She never has any issues. And yeah, I mean, maybe off screen she loses friends, but on screen she still has the same supporters. And like, nobody ever holds her accountable for saying terrible shit. She will maybe do like a backwards apology like 6 episodes down the line. But at the end of the day, like, nobody holds her accountable for anything.
Yeah, she did her half-ass apology to Jen. She's like, oh, I shouldn't have called you a disheveled drug addict or disgruntled drug addict, whatever the fuck she called her, like way later. And it's such like a blasé, like passing thought, like, oh yeah, by the way, I shouldn't have called you that. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Like, she stinks.
She hits below the belt, but I will say Jen Fessler was the one that did stick up to her, and kind of put her in her place earlier in the season where she's like, the shots that you took were low blows.
Yeah, and Marge's response was, nope, it wasn't. Like, that's me. Nope. Like, she never agrees with it. And Fessler, by the way, fucking fantastic first season. She did so well. And the fact that she tied it all together by getting Frank Jr.'s number was fucking perfect.
I feel like Jen Fessler is what Caroline Manzo could have been and didn't fully execute because she ended up exiting the series. But Jen Fessler is that voice of reason. You know, she will put you in your place. She'll do it with tact, and she'll also kind of keep it lighthearted, fun, and keep the pace moving. And she knows how to keep the ball rolling. This is why we don't need Caroline Manzo back on Jersey, because we have Fessler, and I think Fessler really holds down that role well.
We said in our show recently that she is the best friend of across all franchises. And I don't want her to get promoted in fear that she's going to do too much.
Exactly. And that's what I always said, like, about Kathy Hilton too. I was like, Kathy Hilton's great in a friend of role. We don't need her full time. Unfortunately, she ended up filming full time last season, which made her more a part of the drama. And then that's when it really went downhill with Brenna. Calling Jen a disheveled drug addict for weed. It's just like, I agree. Marge hits below the belt. I can't defend that. But what I will say about Marge, though, in comparison to other people on the show, is that Marge puts all her shit on the table. She's like, yes, I was in an affair. Yes, I have lawsuits with my company. So she puts all of her stuff on the table so that nobody can weaponize it against her. And she's not afraid to face anything, but she is really good at exposing other people's stuff as well that I don't always love.
Yeah, she knows not to put her stuff out there because she doesn't want to weaponize against her, because she knows how to weaponize information against other people.
But I
Like,
think
that's how
she
she
does
knows
put
to
all
do
her
that.
stuff out there. I think
She does, but she doesn't. There's a middle ground here because
What
yeah,
happened
it's out there, but the way she addresses people, it's like she didn't do that stuff. That's my problem. When she's
I think
talking
she just
about,
gets ahead of it to try to deflect any sort of like actual hit that might come at her.
I think that
Like,
she
she's
just
not
raises
doing
her
it to be an
voice.
honest person. She's doing it because she wants to keep herself safe.
From what I've gathered from especially this last episode, when people start coming at her is just to not stop yelling. I'm going to continue to yell and say things until you back down. That's her move. It's just go. Her opponent backs
infuriating.
down and then she says something off color as they walk away. That's the Marge move, and I don't like it.
Yeah. But it makes for great Housewives
It
drama.
makes good TV. It makes for good
Yeah.
TV. But it is interesting, and this is like obviously looking forward to next year, and I am curious with this being the fallout that we saw with finally with Melissa and Teresa. Like, obviously there's been fallouts in the past and like they weren't going to talk in the future. I saw something that came out recently that said they are actually at kind of a standstill. They can't move forward. They don't want to be near each other. They will not be in the same room together. So they're putting a halt on filming because of it. They're trying to figure out like a way forward with the two of them. So I want both of y'all's opinion on this. What's better for the show and what is going to happen? Is Teresa going to, if they have to whack one of them, who's getting whacked? Is it Teresa or Melissa?
Probably it has to be Melissa, unless they give Teresa a spinoff.
Yeah, I think that's the only solution. Keep Melissa and give Teresa a spinoff.
Yeah.
I just think Teresa's done on Jersey. You can tell she doesn't want to be on the show anymore. You can
Yeah,
tell
she barely gets into it anymore.
She barely gets into it. Even in the finale last night when Melissa was approaching her, she runs away. She doesn't want to engage. You know, you can tell she hates her brother. She hates Melissa. She doesn't like Margaret. She doesn't like Rachel. She doesn't care about Fessler. Like, she doesn't really care to get into it with the new girls. The only reason she's friends with Jennifer is because Jennifer will do whatever she wants. You can tell she doesn't even really care about Dolores because she didn't include Dolores in some of her wedding events. That it's just like, you can tell she has no loyalty to any of the women. I think she's in a love bubble and she thinks that she's happy and she thinks that she's going to be able to sail off into the sunset on her own. And good for her. I don't think her relationship with Louie is going to last. And he looked real cuckoo crazy last night.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
we get into that?
Yeah, I mean, talk about the pasta.
Do you think that's what it was? Was it the pasta?
Yeah, it was that he had a little too much pasta. You can just see the way his face was so red and the way his eyes were bulging. And he's like, I'm a winner. I'm a winner. Like, it was
I thought it was fucking Charlie Sheen.
He had tiger blood. It was insane.
I couldn't believe it. But like within the past few episodes, it's interesting if you go back and kind of rewatch or rethink about this season, kind of how it's escalated, especially with Louie, because we were the first ones on our podcast to be like, let's give him a chance. Like, he's saying he's changed. He's saying he's trying to do all these things to better himself. We gave him like a 4 to 5 episode run where we're like, we'll be totally objective. You're saying a lot of good things. You seem to be on the right side of things. Let's see. And sure enough, the mask starts to fall off. And in the past 3 episodes, you really saw it slip. And this was kind of the cherry on top. Like, okay, this is who Louie is. And I think the perfect moment that embodies that is when he looks up at the camera and he's like, oh, shooter just lost. But he looks up at the camera, like bright-faced and red and just, I don't give a fuck. Or I don't fucking care, whatever he says. And it's like, oh, you really don't fucking care. And like, this is the true Louie. I'm winning. I'm a winner. Like, he's just off his rocker, whether it's pasta induced or not. I think that's who he is inherently. Like, this is just a manipulative, scary person. And just listen to the way that he talks to Teresa in the past couple of episodes. I've figured out, or at least I think I figured out, how he kind of manipulates the situation is he just uses a lot of big words. He uses a lot of emotionally charged words to kind of spin this web that she gets stuck in, where she's like, oh, he must know what he's talking about. Listen to how he kind of breaks down the situation. And no shade to Teresa, but I don't think that she's bright enough to read between the lines of what he's trying to do. I think she's so ready to be on his team that when she was talking last week, she was like, I'm so sorry for Louie, and that he's basically the victim here of Joe and Melissa's torment. But in reality, he's kind of steering the ship of Teresa where he wants it to go. He's trying to pit her against her brother. He's trying to kind of create this divide and create this drama so that she needs to rely on him more and more and more.
Yeah, and I think to your point about this being who he really is, I agree, and I think we see him like this in situations like this because when you are under the influence of a substance, what is it? The frontal something part of your brain starts to shut
Prefrontal
down.
cortex, or
There you go. The prefrontal cortex. Teresa doesn't know what that means. The prefrontal cortex, it shuts down. And so the parts of you that you're trying to hide or conceal, that armor kind of comes down. And then we see the real person come out. That's why people get angry or they get overly emotional, is because they're trying to bottle something or hide something. And that's why it all comes flowing out when you drink too much alcohol. And I think in this case, this was substance induced, or it appeared substance induced. And I think that Louie was very much showing us who he really is outside of his kumbaya facade.
I agree. And I think that, for all the tree stands out there, at this point, you need to be worried about your girl then. If you're going to stand by her and stick by her side through thick and thin, regardless of what the situation is, then you should be concerned about her well-being right now, because this is a scary person. The fact that he could I don't care about the situation. I don't care how annoyed or emotional you are. You cannot talk to a woman that way as a man. You can't put your hand out and start yelling at Melissa like that and not expect shit to pop off. I thought that was crazy. If you really are this guy that kind of has control of himself and that is growing, is moving forward, then those slip-ups don't happen. You need to actually look at the situation, react accordingly, and you might be a little heated, but the fact that he ramped it up so fast and then he's trying to talk shit to Joe, and he's like, yeah, I said a lot of things. You hear that, Joe? You hear that? It's like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you trying to start a street? And then he walks downstairs and the story changes completely. He talks to Teresa. Yeah, Joe was trying to fight me, and he told a bunch of people to hold him back. He need a lot of people to hold him back because he wanted to fight me. He's crazy. Your brother's crazy. It's all fucking crazy, Teresa. And it's like, that's my Louie. I'm nervous about the situation, honestly, because the guy's unhinged. The red face alone is enough to turn me off of anybody, let alone the behavior.
Yeah, it's not going to end well for them. What do you think, Shooter? How are you feeling about Louie's performance last night?
I think it was wild that he was the one who was saying that Joe was trying to instigate the fight when he was the one who was starting the whole thing. Yeah. Joe was actually actively sitting back. We never see that. Joe usually is right in the forefront, trying to mash heads, trying to do anything he can and talk all the tough talk. And this time he's sitting back and just letting it kind of happen until Louie starts directing things at Melissa. Then he steps up. So it was kind of weird to see that role reversal, and then to see Louie completely blame it all on Joe was wild, because at the end of it, we found ourselves kind of on Joe's side. And that's kind of a first for a lot of us. So we kind of have to look in the mirror and be like, what are we doing at this point? And I've seen a lot of people that are like, now you kind of have to take the firm stance on Joe and Melissa or Louie and Teresa. And we're like, no, we kind of just really want this to go away. But I am happy now, at least, because like Steele said, we spent the first couple episodes giving Louie a little bit of time to see who he is and see if it grows. And now we know he's a fucking psychopath. So it's confirmed, at least, that we can kind of move forward with it.
Very manipulative, very good at gaslighting. And like Steele was saying, kind of using big words and talking in big phrases in order to kind of, convince you that he knows what he's talking about, and to get you to not really question him and just kind of go along with the narrative.
Well, and it's theatrical too. It's like he puts on this whole performance, and I would be so curious when the camera's not on what those conversations look like, because you can tell that he's trying in his head to spin a very, very intelligent sounding sentence. It's a lot of just word salad, and most of it's just fucking nonsense. But when he gets stuck, he drops a like. And I noticed it 4 or 5 times during his rant. He was like, it's like, and that's him trying to think of something so remarkable to say that's going to knock everybody's socks off, that the viewers at home are going to be like, oh my God, how insightful. But instead it comes out like verbal diarrhea, because he's talking too fast for his brain to catch up. Maybe because of the pasta, but
most likely,
yeah, more than likely. But I think that's his MO from the beginning. And I think if you watch all of it from that viewpoint, which most viewers have, a lot of people haven't given him the chance to kind of see if he was full of shit or not. But it's very clear that this is who Louie is. This is the guy he's always been. We saw that
last year in Nashville last year, when that was our first glimpse at who Louie was. He just completely flipped out before he proposed to Teresa.
Yeah.
And like there was a whole thing, and we're like, all right, is this dude fucking nuts or what? And then we kind of forgot about it because it was towards the end of that season, and then we got that really weird reunion where they were really lovey, and then the love bubble thing popped up, and now we're slowly getting back to that. So it seems like he's kind of going through this almost like a bipolar path where he's like trying to find himself and being a really nice guy and overly nice and trying to correct everybody's issues. And then he gets to a point where he just boils over, and it seems like that same thing's just going to repeat and repeat until eventually this marriage is completely doomed.
Or we see an episode of Dateline.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that. I was like, no, but I mean, think about it. Like, it could get to that point, especially if she chooses to leave the show. And then, because we know she like very much is very protective of her relationship as it is, that I think she, you know, even if he is, you know, verbally, if he does snap at her the way we saw him snap at Melissa or speak to Teresa that way, I don't think she would be willing to, you know, she would protect him at all costs the same way I think she tried to protect Joe Giudice at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think she's going to be ride or die no matter what. I think she's in it regardless. Everyone's saying it's not going to last. I don't see it ending anytime soon. I don't think that she's going to want to admit that she was wrong or this love bubble actually popped. And two, when you get into a relationship with a manipulative person such as Louie, breaking those chains, so to speak, is very difficult, especially for somebody like Teresa, who's just looking for love. She's just looking for that solid partner that she doesn't have to worry about. And she's thinking that she found it in Louie. I think that before this is all said and done, it gets really ugly and gets really bad. And I hate to say that. I hate to even say that or put that out in the universe, but it just does not look good. None of this looks encouraging whatsoever.
No, and I think he has convinced her that this is, you know, this is the love of her life, and compared to what she went through with Joe, and look at how long she stayed with Joe.
That's my
He'd
point.
be locked away in prison and deported for her to finally decide that she wanted to leave him because she physically couldn't be with him anymore.
Yeah. I mean, had he not gotten kicked out of the country, like who knows? Like it could have been a different story. We could be seeing the reuniting of those two getting married. Like there's no telling where that path would have went if he hadn't gotten deported. Thank you. But I want to talk about the alleged phone call from Gia to Joe.
Oh, yeah.
What do we think that happened?
I think that happened.
Yeah, I think it happened too.
But I don't think, like, I think in Gia's head, she wasn't saying leave Melissa. She was just saying, we think you can do better. And I think Joe received that as her saying, we want you to break up with Melissa. And that's why we have this, I didn't say that, yes, you did sort of situation right now. I think Gia is smart enough to drop little nuggets or to say things in a certain way that's like, I didn't say that, because Teresa's really good at that, where she'll say one thing to leave you with an impression, but then was like, those weren't the words that came out of my mouth, you know, and you play a game of semantics.
Yeah, and we know that Gia is kind of like clawing for a little bit of spotlight too, so maybe she thought that this would be a big moment for her, but we also know the dynamic of this family, so anything that happens off camera, we're never really going to understand what actually happened, because they both lie so much that the actual truth is completely gone, and we'll never find out what actually happened there. I think that Gia probably did call him, even though that she's saying that she didn't. She's actually saying that she never called him at all. So
no, she said that she did call him, but she called him to beg him to come to the wedding. That was why she called him.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's bullshit. I think that Gia called him and talked to it because she wants to be an adult. Like we've seen that 3 or 4 times this season, a couple times last season. She wants to be in the mix. She wants to be part of the housewife crew, and this is how she's kind of engaging herself to get in there. So I fully believe that she called and she put her 2 cents in. I don't think Joe should listen to it. I really don't think that Gia should be giving her opinion to Joe. But at the same time, it's just really tough to watch. And I don't know where they're going to go from here, because we get the scene with Melissa sitting by her pool talking about how there's no way forward. And I think this is the last straw. And they have to be kind of worried, because what is their show? What is their role on this show if they're not fighting with Teresa? Like nobody wants to see Melissa just being an extra talking to Marge about whatever shit Marge is stirring up. Nobody really wants to see Joe just kind of tagging along for boys' night. There's no storyline there. So I really don't understand what they think their role on this show is going to be. I guess we can give them the grace of like a season to see what that looks like if they're not going to try to get in and mix it up with Teresa. but I really don't see a path forward for them.
I think honestly that it would be nice to give them one season without Teresa to see what they could do. And not saying that they would be good, not saying they'd be great, not even mediocre. They might totally suck, but then we could be like, all right, get them out of here. I think that to give them the boot entirely without giving them that chance, because they've never had that chance. And I'm 99% sure, regardless, even if they are on the show without Teresa, it would probably still be Teresa centric somehow. They would still probably come back to their relationship with her. But I do think it'd be interesting to give them a shot. All right, guys, you've been on the show for a while. Teresa's gone. Let's see what you can do. You claim that you are on the show on your own behalf, that you guys didn't use Teresa to get here. All right, prove it. Like, I'm down for that, for one season of that.
Yeah, I think as long as Teresa's there, it's just not going to work. If Teresa does move on, and she said love bubble, I want to like go back and rewatch the season, as much as I really don't want to rewatch the season because there's not a lot to rewatch. I do want to know how many times she said love bubble, and I'm starting to think conspiracy theories in here that she is in the workings with Bravo for a spinoff, and it's called the love bubble. Like, it has to be. There's no way these people aren't like savvy enough to kind of let things happen organically. They always try to force things. Like, that's why I brought up the whole chosen family thing again, because that was very obvious. Like, okay, so that was real. Now the love bubble thing has popped up so often that it's like, all right, it's got to be called fucking love bubble at this point. So if Teresa moves on, then yeah, give Melissa and Joe a season to figure it out. If they're duds and they're just trying to like tag along to other storylines, then that's kind of who they are and that's what they are, and we can move on without them. But if they try to flourish a little bit, then give them some time. I don't know. I'm not in the game of just kicking people off the show because they've been bothering me for so long.
No, and I think honestly, and maybe it was the episode last night, but if I had to pick, and I'm still down the middle-ish, but if I had to lean one way or the other, I'm closer to Team Gorga than I am Team Teresa by far. I think that looking at it objectively, if everything that was said last night was true to at least some degree, that would make a lot of sense why Joe had no business with Teresa or with Louie all season when they were trying to bridge the gap or attempting to bridge the gap. It would make more sense why he was like, fuck this, and not giving them any attention if Gia did in fact make that phone call, if he did in fact go over to their house and they sat there and tried to convince him to break up with Melissa. And I think that whether or not that was the words he used, like, even if Gia said he could do better, like, you know what the implication is and you know what they're trying to do, the underlying tone. So regardless of the words being said, it's the implication that matters. Yeah. And if that was the implication, like, I wouldn't be cool with them either. I wouldn't sit around a table and like, as Louie's trying to sing Kumbaya, peace of love and bullshit, I wouldn't agree to it. I'd be like, all right, fuck you, Teresa. Your daughter's in the mix now. Like, what are we doing? You care about family? You really care about family? Because it sure doesn't seem like it. And I love that that's always her crutch to lean on. Anybody that knows me knows that family first. It's like, well, prove it, because the only evidence you had at that the same conversation you just said family matters, you said you iced your cousin out. I don't know what your cousin's background is, but you've iced her out. Melissa and Joe are iced out. You have no family left, Teresa. Your family's gone. You have your daughters, and your Louie and Louie's family. So your family has gotten much, much smaller because you care about family. So I'm sick of it.
Yeah, she doesn't care about family and she's not loyal to her family. But I mean, even though, just with the context that we have, knowing that this conversation happened with Joe and without Melissa, which then tells me if Louie and Teresa sat down Joe Gorga and said, hey, there's this cheating rumor, then that's telling me that they want Joe to, that one, they believe it, and two, that they want Joe to actually leave Melissa because they believe that this rumor is true. Otherwise, they would have gone to them and been like, look, this is the rumor that we've heard. It's bogus. We shut this Laura woman down because we don't believe her. That's what they could have done, and that's what they should have done, and they didn't do that. And so now we know going into the season that conversation happened, and we know going into the season the pizza oven situation happened. Now I understand Joe and Melissa being like, we don't want to be bothered by you this season. All of the shit that you're doing on camera right now is performative and it's fake.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the PI that Louie said in the finale that he hired, and then went on Watch What Happens Live and said, oh no, I never hired a PI. I just said that just to say
it. I really have no fucking idea. Like, this guy, he's such a loose cannon that I really don't even know. I can't even formulate an opinion on whether or not he actually hired a PI. Like, part of me thinks he absolutely did, because that seems like something he would do. part of me thinks that he absolutely didn't, because it seems like something he would do. Like, I can't get a read on this guy because he's all over the place. But if you have to make me pick right now, I do think that he probably had a PI look into Joe and Melissa, probably after the whole Pizzagate bullshit went down. He probably had them take a look and say, what is Joe Gorga doing with his money? What's going on with these pizzas? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? I think maybe he had that. So it's partially true, but there's no way in my mind that he could have actually had a PI look into all of the women on the show and their significant others and everything else.
He definitely
It just seems
did.
too much. You think so?
100%. You can't
I
sit
don't
there
know.
and say Bo Deedle and Bo Deedle this, Bo Deedle that. The motherfucker had a name. You don't think that Louie, the guy that's bright red,
I think
and
he has a
screaming,
PI on retainer because he's a fucking
Yeah.
psycho.
right?
But
So
I
if
don't
he
think
drops a
that he
line to
had them
Bo,
look into like Marge.
why not?
No,
Why not?
I
He's
think-
probably looking to this whole crew. I want to know everyone's dirt, because
No,
if he knows
I
how the game works, he wants the ammo.
I think he has a PI on retainer, and maybe not even retainer. I think maybe he has a friend that's a PI, because he said that
That's
this guy's
probably true,
his
yeah.
friend. And so I think he taps into this friend's network whenever he wants something on someone. And I don't think, and this is where you have Teresa saying he doesn't have that kind of money to dig into every single housewife on the show. And it's like, okay, fine. Then he's not, well, he has $250,000 that he can just blow on some pizza oven. So what's another
Yeah.
$250 on a PI?
He lost
But
$500 million from Ruelas.
yeah. So, like, my thing is, I think this is where they fall back into that gray area, right? Where this is where they try to defend themselves. It's like, well, technically, maybe this PI brought us some dirt on Melissa, and maybe this PI brought us some dirt on Margaret, but this PI didn't bring us dirt on Danielle and on Jennifer Fuda and on Dolores Catania. So that's not the whole cast. We don't have time to look into the whole cast. We're not going to hire him to look into the whole cast. And that's where they're able to throw out statements like that by saying, he wouldn't actually spend money to look into the whole cast. That's a lot of money and a lot of time that he doesn't care to invest, but he does care to invest in Melissa and Margaret.
I think he did it 100%.
I don't know.
I need to do more research on Bo Deedle.
But it's also just weird. Well, I think the guy Bo, I think he came out and he said no, that he's claiming that Louie did not hire him, and this is where I think again maybe it was a favor to a friend. I think that there's again they play in this gray area that seems to slither their way through things.
Yeah, and a guy named Bo Deedle, who's a PI that digs through people's trash looking for dirt's not going to lie. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, if he's on retainer, he's not going to spill the beans.
No, I'm sure he
Yeah,
has an NDA that he signed.
Yeah. He's definitely on the up and up. A guy named Bo fucking Deedle. Like, there's no way. I can see him in my brain.
It's actually
I know
just Patrick
exactly what he
Summers
looks
in
like.
disguise.
What a callback.
Watch him come out and take some.
Oh, he'll be back. We know it.
Vanderpump finale tonight. He's definitely going to be on there doing something. He's going to stir up some stupid shit. I can't wait to watch you go live with him again and yell at him. That was I was on my couch at midnight and I was like literally about to go to bed, and it popped up that what was it? Pink Pop Box? Is that who it was?
Oh yeah.
Was doing the live, and then all of a sudden I saw like Zack joined, and I was like, "What is that?" So I clicked it, and it was literally the minute I tuned in, you were yelling at Patrick Summers. I was like, "This is great."
Oh, what a time to be alive. So you guys are not looking forward to Teresa Gets Married wedding special next week. So I guess we don't get the reunion next week then, because it's Teresa's wedding special. That's fucking
No, yeah.
And so
that's like why
this will determine whether or not she gets the spinoff, is what the ratings will look like for next week. I'm not interested. I really don't care. I mean, like
We saw the pictures, we saw some clips. Like, I don't know what else we need to see.
I don't
Here's
need
what
the
I
whole
think.
wedding special.
I think
Yeah.
that the when it was dropped, there was so much excitement about it, right? And I think that they dropped too much too early. And then I think that Teresa did herself a huge disservice by not being checked in this season. She was kind of checked out. She didn't bring her A game. You can tell she kind of wants to move on from the show. So people have lost interest in Teresa. A lot of people have been saying things like, I'm done with Teresa on the show. I don't want to watch it if she's on the show anymore. And those are things that you wouldn't normally hear. So I think that she kind of shot herself in the foot. I think people will tune in. I don't know if it's going to be astronomical numbers, but I think people will tune in. Had she had a better season, I think a lot more people would have tuned in. And if you're vying for a spinoff, if that's your end goal, then you should have brought your A game all year. Like, this is your jumping off point, supposedly. So I don't know. unfortunately, we have to fucking watch it, but I don't want to watch it at all.
Yeah. 387 watching live right now, guys. Hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube, and don't forget to give Steel and Shooter a follow here. Subscribe to their Instagram account and give them a follow on their podcast, the Brav Bros podcast. Storm Doris says, I'm team reboot of Real Housewives of New Jersey. What do you think? We have New York that's in this reboot phase, right? Where we have this legacy Ultimate Girls Trip, and then we have this fully rebooted Real Housewives of New York. Do you think that this is something we should do with Jersey? I like Fuda and Danielle, and I think they can help take the show into the future without having to reboot it. But what are your thoughts?
I think the same thing, honestly. I think if we know anything about Bravo, when they start to do this infusion of new blood, I think they've invested too much into this core group. Like, yes, we talked about maybe Teresa doing a spinoff, maybe Melissa and Joe going away, but they have these two new people who nobody really dislikes necessarily, at least says, they're not doing well for the show. Like, when we talk about it, we always talk about how they're just kind of finding their footing, but they're doing a good job, both sides. So I don't support a full reboot, because I don't want people like Dolores to just like go off to the wayside, like it pop up in a legacy show or an Ultimate Girls Trip. I like watching her, and I want to see more about her and Paulie. So there is definitely a way to go here. It's not like how Ronnie was at the end.
I agree with you.
Ronnie really crashed and burned at the end, and all they had left was what Leah and Ebony as the newbies, and Leah and Ebony could not carry the show into the future.
No, and I think that if you do a reboot, I think that all of the reboots, the issue that they're going to run into is the OG faithfuls, and I think that that's going to be the hard part for people to like. We literally ask our listeners, we're like, hey, when the new Ronnie comes out, please try to go into it with an open mind. This is not Dorinda. This is not Luann. This is not Sonia. You're not getting old Ronnie. And I'm afraid that without any of the old blood at all, these shows aren't going to get a fair chance, because people are going to be so quick to be like, oh, I don't want to watch it. That's not my girls. And it's like, well, if you want these shows to continue, you need to give the new blood a chance. So I'm not out on reboots. I think that there needs to be a way to do it where you tie in the old crowd somehow. You can't just completely cast them out, because a lot of people get pissed that you disrespected the ladies. And I understand that. Like, they built the show, so to cast them out completely and then give them an Ultimate Girls Trip as like a refund doesn't seem like the best way to go about it. Maybe there's a way to incorporate them in, but then you run the risk of them trying to take over the show. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place. I think that these shows might have a chance, but people have to be open to new people.
I think them announcing the reboot and the legacy show before any of it was even a for sure thing was the way they killed the franchise. Because had they just taken a beat and taken a pause, like Vanderpump, after the whole Stassi, Kristen, Jax firing scandal, they took a whole year off before they even started filming, and they kind of let the dust settle, and then they gave it a chance to kind of have life again. Whereas I think in this case, they killed Ronnie. I think this legacy Ultimate Girls Trip show is the best they could have done for the old cast, because there was no way for them to come back, and at least this way we can tie a nice little bow on it and send them off lovingly, looking back with the nostalgia. I mean, Kristen Takeman and Kelly Ben-Simone I can do without. I know that there are possibly two other girls that may be joining the mix as well, so we'll see what they end up bringing for Legacy. I'm still holding out and hoping for at least a Bethany cameo. I don't think Bethany would do the full show, but a cameo I think she's at least open to, and Andy Cohen revealed in his book that she even said, like, if you want me to do Legacy, make me your best offer. So I think she's open to it if it makes sense for her. But I don't think anybody's going to watch the Ronnie reboot. I think the first episode's going to do well, and then the second episode's not going to do as well. And then by the third episode, it's going to completely fall off the same way Dubai didn't last. I think at this point, the people that watch Housewives watch it for the women that they're emotionally invested in, and all these new women, people aren't emotionally invested in. And I think this new Ronnie reboot cast, I think it looks like a great cast for like a Real Girlfriends in New York City. That style show. Younger, because Ronnie was always these old broads that lived on the Upper East Side, that were Manhattan moms, that were, this affluent, uber wealthy, cuckoo crazy 40-year-old white woman in New York City. It wasn't meant to reflect New York City as much as it was meant to reflect a very niche demographic of New York City, and that's this uber wealthy Upper East Side crazy ass broads that do crazy shit to get their kids into school. You know what I mean? And and it worked because they had history and they had fabric that tied them all together.
There's lots of those out there, though. Like, we can find another group of crazy white women in the Upper East Side.
I get
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I get that, but that was the intention of the show. So them trying to reboot the show with an entirely different style of cast and an entirely different concept, it shouldn't have been Real Housewives of New York. We should have made it an entirely different show.
I think they're just having a hard time trying to focus on the newer generations, because all these people that watched, like you said, like, we got emotionally attached to the women that were on the screen, but we can't watch 85-year-old women in 15, 20 years sitting up on a screen anymore. We're going to be like, what the hell are we doing? So they're really having a hard time, and that's why they're just kind of throwing shit at the wall. And some things are sticking, like Southern Hospitality, but Real Girlfriends in Paris is not going to stick. It looks like they're pretty much going to be one and done.
Yeah.
And then the Ronnie thing, it's like, all right, like, maybe this will work. We'll do an iconic city that we had a good cast for, and we'll introduce you to a whole bunch of new people who are a little younger, and maybe it'll speak to the younger audience.
No.
And I just don't see it working. And Steele and I are hopeful. I mean, we talk about it all the time, like, just hoping that something's going to stick, but it's going to be a rough go for Bravo over the next couple of years, just trying to figure out a sort of like an algorithm that works.
Yeah, until they find that formula, I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah.
The brand of Ronnie has already been established. So for them to have such a quick, what they should have done was how they introduced Vanderpump Rules with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Remember, they had Brandi Glanville and Sheena Shea come together for a crossover episode where you didn't even realize you were watching Vanderpump Rules. That's what they should have done. A completely different New York style show. Should not have been called Real Housewives, because the Real Housewives brand has already been established. It should have been a different brand that was maybe an introduction to this next tier of housewives. And I think Real Girlfriends was a great way to do that. And for whatever reason, Bravo doesn't want to continue to invest in that, because I think had they invested in it the way they invested in Real Housewives of Orange County when that initially flopped and they really kind of pushed it on people until it grew on people, that's, I think, what we could have done with this Real Girlfriends franchise. And we could have done a Real Girlfriends in New York, a Real Girlfriends of Manhattan, where it didn't even need to be New York City. It could have just been Manhattan. It could have been Brooklyn, Chelsea, whatever pocket of New York they want to pick at, I think would have been great. And it should have been a crossover episode where you have Ramona and Dorinda and Luann and whatever, and you find a way to get one of them or a few of them or some of them to introduce us to these younger women in one episode. And then all of a sudden, before we know it, we're watching a completely different show where we've already started to get used to these other women. And I think that would have been a perfect way to segue it.
No, I agree. I think that the Girlfriends in Paris thing stinks that they didn't get. I liked that show. I thought it had a lot of promise.
Good show. It had a lot of potential.
It was. I thought that they could have kept going with it. There was no reason for them to be one and done with it. And I think that if you're looking at the shows that are performing well, it's not the Real Housewives model, so to speak. Those aren't the shows making noise anymore. And I think that until they can figure out, and I understand that's their mainstay program, but until they can figure out how to replicate that, they need to put more emphasis on the Southern Hospitalities, on the Vanderpumps, on Real Girlfriends in Paris. I think it's a great idea. And you can kind of, someone in the comments even said it, and we've talked about it too. Summer house in the city is interesting. Seeing their lives day to day is interesting. So pivot. Like, I feel like Bravo's so afraid to like pivot and just do something else because they want to hammer home the fucking brand.
That could have been how they did this, was using the Summer House girls. Paige, Sierra, Lindsay, I don't care who or how they wanted to do it. That would have been a perfect way to introduce us to this other group of New York women. And like, I just think it would have been like, they got so lucky. Bravo got so lucky with Vanderpump Rules and this scandal drama. Had they not had that, the network was really starting to circle the drain, and it saved them. But they need to be smart about this. And I hope that they find a way, because like, look at Vanderpump Rules was an extension of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I think that's what they need to continue to do, is find a way to continue to move the shows over. Because even Lisa Vanderpump, she's still relevant and she still has a prominent role on Vanderpump Rules. That we still have that Real Housewives of Beverly Hills influence on Vanderpump Rules, and they should have started to think about how to do this with the other shows. They're trying to do it with Atlanta, but all of the Atlanta spinoffs don't really seem to be picking up the steam that I think they expected from Vanderpump Rules.
Well, I think, it's going to be hard to replicate the Vanderpump Rules one, especially you need to find somebody as captivating as LVP was back then. And then for her to have that spinoff, like,
and a different fresh model. Nobody wants to see another restaurant model with Candy and the Gang. Like Candy and the Gang was good, but it's like that model has already been done, and it's always going to be compared to Vanderpump Rules. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. That's a really good point. Is how do you create an idea that's original that still ties into why you love the shows? And I think that's why Vanderpump did well. It's because it was entirely new, but you had that comfort blanket of Lisa Vanderpump. Like, oh, this is familiar. I like this. There's so many different avenues that you could go that I feel like they just get stuck on one idea. And it's like, oh, we just need to hammer this shit home. Let's keep doing this, keep doing this. Eventually it's got to work, right? It's like, no, it's not working. The stuff that is working, you tend to not lean into for some weird reason. So I'm glad that Soho's getting a second season. I think that they have a lot of promise. And I think that is a model. That's a Vanderpump model, but it did work.
I think the other thing too is, and this falls on our responsibility, is we need to focus on covering more of those shows and not giving the Housewives shows as much of the attention that a lot of podcasters and content creators give. And I get it. It's easier clickbait. It's easier, more brand recognition because people know Real Housewives more than they know Southern Hospitality. But we are kind of the ones that are leading what people are watching on Bravo. And I think the more we give attention to these other shows, I think eventually people will start to invest in those other shows.
Well, we're going to be all in on, the new ones. We're going to give them a fair shake. Simply because we need Bravo to continue, because that's our job. If Bravo goes away, we go away. So
yeah.
Obviously, we're going to watch those. We gave a lot of support to Southern Hospitality during it. We were in contact with a lot of people on the show. It's a really nice cast. Like everyone I've talked to from there has been very pleasant. And I hope that they keep doing well. And I hope that listeners, anyone watching this, anyone listening to our podcasts, if we recommend something or if we're going to give it a fair shake, just watch it with an open mind. And hopefully it picks up. I think everyone gets stuck on this trope of you're expecting X, Y, and Z, and then you get something else. And then they're like, oh, I'm not watching this. It might be a good show. It might just not be the show you're expecting.
Yeah. And it takes, give it a few episodes and see, but I also think, there's a lot that Bravo can do to kind of build some excitement. Like, Real Girlfriends in Paris. They didn't even invite them to BravoCon.
They weren't even promoting them, really. I mean, they started promoting like the week before it aired, and then we watched it. I was watching it on Peacock. I was like, this is actually kind of nice. Like, I like the setting. I like that we're in Paris. I like the girls. They're all really nice and interesting. And they had the formula. So I was so confused when, one, they didn't push it, and two, it just went away.
Yeah. Especially because it had that grit that Vanderpump Rules had. It was these younger girls that were kind of struggling and trying to find their footing and didn't really know where they were going with their lives, but they were trying to make it happen in New York City, that it had that kind of hustle and ambition that I think made Vanderpump so successful at the beginning.
Yeah, we resonate with that, right? We resonate. That's the difference between these styles of shows and the Real Housewives. Real Housewives and what they've gotten away from as well is big, extravagant lifestyles. We watch that because we are probably not going to live that way, and we want to see people that do. We watch Vanderpump and Southern Hospitality and Real Girlfriends in Paris because we've been through that shit. A lot of us are still going through that shit. Like, you want to see people struggle because you're like, I can relate. I can resonate with that. I had to do that. I'm going through that right now. It's good to see that kind of stuff too. I think that they need to find that happy medium and like make everybody happy and get the fuck out of their own way as a network.
Yes. Ebony wants to know, are you two going to BravoCon in Vegas?
Scoots and I will be there. I don't know about Zach, but me and Shooter will. We might not make it out of Vegas, but we will go to Vegas.
I've always been very clear. I will go to BravoCon if there is an opportunity for me to work at BravoCon. If Bravo wants to put me on a stage, I will be at BravoCon. If Bravo does not want to put me on a stage, I will not be at BravoCon. I support everybody that goes to BravoCon. I think you guys will have a lot of fun. I just, as a full-time content creator, it makes more sense for me to create my content about BravoCon here in LA and not expense the big trip to Vegas or New York. Again, I have a roof to keep above my head, and I can't tape content from BravoCon the way that I can from LA. So if there's a gig and I can work BravoCon, I will be there. And if not, then I will be comfortably here watching Steal and Shooter tear up Vegas.
We've never been to BravoCon, so we don't know what we're getting into. And
good luck. It's going to be a busy weekend.
between that and gambling, I genuinely might not make it out of Vegas. It might be like a hangover situation. I don't even drink, and I'm concerned that I'm not making it out of Vegas.
Oh, I love it. Well, I will be in Vegas in August because I'm doing Bet It All on Blonde.
What is that?
The Erica Jane residency.
Oh my God, that's right. We got invited to the party to announce that. I think you did too. You went, right?
Yeah, I went to that. Yeah.
They reached out to us and I in our email, and I was ready. I was like, shoot, let's go. Like, flights out there are like $150. Like, let's just go. And he's like, he breaks it down like responsibly. He's like, we're gonna buy tickets and fly to Las Vegas on a whim on a Wednesday when I have work. Like, come on, Steele. I was like, fucking nerd. Like, let's go.
It was fun. It was fun, and I'm excited to go to the show. I have a table in Vegas, so
Well, let me know how that is.
I will let you know. And I will see you in July 26th at City Winery in New York City. It is going to be a no-filter night out with the Brav Bros round 2. We had Dorinda Medley. We had Chris Bassett. We had Philly Diva in Philly last month. And now this July 26th, we're going to be live at City Winery in New York City with me, Steele, Shooter, and some very special guests. I hope you are ready because it is going to be good.
Yeah, don't miss out. Please just buy the ticket now. Buy it now, because we've had so many people reach out to us after the show and be like, oh my God, that looked like so much fun. I wish I went. And it's like, well, you could have if you bought a ticket 2 weeks before the show because you were sold out. Like, it is as fun as it looks. We're not just blowing it out of proportion. We had a blast. Everyone there has been talking about it since. All my friends that went are still talking about it. So we'd love to see you guys. We'd love to have another sold out crowd in New York. Buy your ticket now. We can't tell you who the guests are yet, Daria, but we will soon. Just buy a ticket and then we'll let you know. I promise you don't want to miss them.
Yes, you don't want to miss it. July 26th, City Winery in New York City. It's the main City Winery, because people are like, there are multiple City Wineries in New York. We're at the main City Winery, not City Vineyard. We're at the City Winery, New York City. We're not the Rockefeller Center.
Yeah,
we're at the main. We're the main one.
We're the mainstay.
Exactly. So go to nofilterlive.com. You can also get tickets to my live show with Lala Kent on June 15th. It's my 30th birthday. So it's going to be a big show. We have the show and then we have the brunch the next morning. So you can get your tickets to that at nofilterlive.com. Steele, where can they keep up with you and subscribe to the Brav Bros?
On Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Brav_Bros, and on YouTube, Brav Bros Podcast. Subscribe. We're doing a lot more YouTube content as of late. So check it out. Subscribe. Click the button. Help us out.
Click the button. Hit the like button on your way out of this video. And thanks, guys, for sticking with us, for supporting us. You can always follow me at Just Plain Zack, or you can follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack. Be sure to keep up with the Brav Bros. Follow Steele. Follow Shooter. Ebony Dixon says, Steele, make your shirt say Brav Bros.
I will. Yeah, we'll get our name right first, and then I'll change the shirt.
Oh yeah, Bravo Bros.
Everybody does that. It's actually kind of funny if you like look us up on anything or like in our comments. I'd say 50-50. It's Brav Bros or Bravo Bros. So we go by both.
Well, there you go. The Brav Bros / Bravo Bros will be live in New York City with me July 26th. Get your tickets at nofilterlive.com. And get ready, guys. We have a lot more tea that we're going to be spilling. Steele and Shooter are going to be here to help me break down the Jersey recap for the reunion. And then, oh my God, we already have tonight's Scandival night. Are you ready for Scandival night?
I don't think so. I genuinely, Shooter's coming over to watch it with my wife and I. I'm making a most extra dinner for everybody.
I think I might
know, man.
I'm Scandival on the most extra shows in Chicago next week.
Are you going?
I think I'm gonna go. I don't know. I'm still.
We had people ask us. He did a show near Philly, and he's like, "Are you guys gonna go and like support Ariana?" We're like, fuck no.
I think I need to be boots on the ground and just see what the hype is, because he keeps saying his shows are sold out, and
there's no way.
I need to sneak in.
Can you go live from the show, or is that
I think
like
I might go live from the show? No, I don't.
Well, Ryan Bailey.
Find out.
I talked to him the other day. He was driving back from Arizona to California because I guess he went to a show out in Arizona. I didn't get to ask him how it went. I'm touching base with him later this week, but I think he did the same thing you're gonna do.
Well, here we go. We're about to find out. All right. Thanks, Steele. Thanks, Shooter. Guys, go give them some love, the Brav Bros, and I'll talk to you later this week. After I'll do a post Scandival recap, so get ready for it.
Yeah, we will too. I think we might go live, but everyone buckle the fuck up. It's gonna get messy.
Let's do it. All right. Thanks, guys.